Also, the installation of conduit and wall heater on the south side substation. We finalized the water department SCADA system upgrades and also purchased and installed a backup generator for the 20th Street lift station. And currently, right now, we're working on the number 2 burner upgrade project that's in the electric production department for the steam, wholesale steam. Financially, the utility is projecting a net income for the 2016 budget year of $1,910,948. All of our divisions are projecting positive net margins for the year, and there is an increase in labor rates of approximately 2% within this budget. The 2016 budget does not anticipate any rate increases in any of the funds at this point. Significant items that are impacting cash reserves for the 2016 budget would be, first off, depreciation expenses for the year are estimated at $4 million. Principal payments on debt for all funds is about $965,000, and then we have capital outlays of $6 million, and there's also $500,000 in transfers from the water and the wastewater division to the city for infrastructure improvements in water and sewer mains. The city, the PUC and city, I guess, has currently has an AA2 bond rating from Moody's, and we're projecting our target reserves to be at about 55% and our debt service coverage at about 4.92 times. The 2016 budget reflects operating costs of $13,844,201, and this is approximately 0.7% more than the 2005 budget. Just looking at the electric division, they're projecting a net income for the 2016 budget year of $527,000. Sales are expected to be down about 0.2% from the 2015 budget levels. Operating expenses, net of fuel, purchased power, our conservation improvement costs, and payment in lieu of taxes are 3.2% more than the 2015 budget. There's also a cash transfer from the steam division of $700,000 into the electric division to help fund the number 2 burner upgrade in the production department, which will provide a secondary reliability to the utility steam production. The district energy division is showing net income for the 2016 budget at about $84,000. Operating expenses for 2016 are projected to increase about $29,000 from the 2015 levels. Capital projects for 2016 include a low-pressure steam main replacement from 2nd North Street from Minnesota to German Street to the power plant. So that's the major capital project in the district energy division. The natural gas division is anticipating net income for the 2016 budget of $235,975. The operating expenses are up about 0.1% from the 2015 budget. The water division, the 2016 net income for the water division is projected at about $527,000. This budget anticipates a decrease in sales about 2.9% from the 2015 budget. Sales are based on a 3-year average. This fund is highly dependent on weather, so that can affect our sales, as well as any conservation improvements that are put into place. The operating expenses for the water division are projected to increase about 2.3% from the 2015 levels. The long-term capital plans within the water division are to include a study and development plans for any new water sources to meet future demand and regulatory requirements. The wastewater division is anticipating a net income of about $514,000 for 2016, and this includes a capital contribution to the city from the city for the reconstruction of any wastewater infrastructure, and that's estimated at about $445,000. Operating expenses are projected to increase 0.9% from the 2015 budget. Capital plans for the wastewater division are to include about approximately $3 million, which is to install new technology to the ATAD facility, which would reduce our costs and prolong the life of that facility. Also to install additional odor control measures at the 20th lift station, and then to upgrade pumps at the 20th lift station as well. These capital projects are going to be funded with the general obligation revenue bonds, which will be issued in mid-2016. The administration division includes the departments of the meter department, the administration department, customer service, our conservation improvement program department, the storeroom, and then also GIS and engineering. The overall 2016 budget net operating costs are anticipated to be 1.1% more than the 2015 budget. The Information Technology Support Division is the general fund for information technology, which will support the City of New Ulm as well as the PUC. Operating expenses are projected to increase 2% from the 2015 budget. Current capital expenditures are going to focus on system resilience, disaster recovery, and performance. The division's budgets are estimates of revenues and expenses and capital costs. And in the 2016 budget, we have made all efforts that we can to control the total expenses within these budgets. The electric, gas, water, wastewater, and the administration departments are projecting positive cash flows for 2016. There's some negative cash flows within the district energy and the information technology division, but they're planned spend downs to fund various capital projects that we've been saving for. And there's also an interfund cash transfer from the, as spoken about before, from the district energy department to the electric department to fund the burner upgrade project. So that's basically what I have. I think we're going to start with the sales in the electric department, then we'll go to the production department, and then Larry will finish off with the distribution. Did you have any questions on the information that
I have just one question. The reserves of 55%, and I understand that everybody likes a good credit rating.
Yep.
But is that going to change just naturally through the year with things that occur that it could drop a fair amount?
Well, the 55% that I've anticipated is after the 2016 budget year.
After
So that, yep,
2016.
so that will include all of the expenses and capital projects that we're projecting for 2016.
So then depending on what kind of capital projects we have next year, it could make that 55% drop back to 40% or whatever.
Sure.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Well, I guess you're going to have to bear with me. This is the first one I've done. But
Start on page 3.
I'm starting on page 3 with the utility sales. And basically how I came up with these numbers is I pretty much looked for a 3-year average, and I looked for any spikes and anything that might be current out there that's coming that could add to or subtract to. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is I stayed pretty conservative on this. I didn't make a whole lot of changes. So anything new, hopefully, would be a good revenue, obviously. And I didn't project anything really changing too much. Just to, like I say, just to stay conservative on it.
The only comment I would like to make on that, and Larry didn't calculate this out, but if you were to look at the high-pressure steam line, which is about the middle of the page, it's account number 710 4,37060. That went up about $450,000. That's due to an anticipated load within one of our large industrial steam customers. So this is actually revenue that's going to come from the steam department to the electric department for wholesale steam. So we built that anticipated increased load into this budget.
Does Target factor into that, or is really the amount of electricity they use just inconsequential in the scheme of things?
You know, I guess it all factors into a point, but it's not like it would be an industrial load that we'd lose,
Yeah.
where it's all motors just pouring the coals to it, you know, and the old meters are spinning, you know, most of theirs is lighting,
Yep.
air conditioning. So I don't see it changing drastically, but there again, I went very conservative on these numbers because I don't wanna come out on top here way up and have a big shortfall.
Yep.
So, you know, a lot of your big box stores like that are just that, they're space, you know. So lighting, air conditioning, and maybe some coolers if they went to super Targets or something where they've got milk and things like that. But generally, it's not like it would be, you know, AMPI, Firmenich, Kraft,
Yeah.
3M, things like that.
The other question I would have is too, is around just residential use in general. It seems like we are growing more and more homes and multifamily or multi-unit kind of places out around, Cashwise and out there. Does that really have an effect, or is it everyone using LED lights and they're just, it's just all going down and we don't notice them?
You know, and you can help me here, but I think it's dropped the last few years, and I do truly believe it's energy efficient stuff.
It is, and we're seeing the exact same thing in the water department too. You know, there's been such a push with, you know, in low flow, shower heads, and the toilets are all, you know, water conservation. It's the same thing, you know, we're pushing energy efficiency, but we're also seeing our sales drop because of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think under miscellaneous revenues then, the only thing that I would really point out that, the one on outside utility sales, I believe that is that 405,000. That was actually what we sold to Excel capacity sales. So, other than that, nothing really stands out on that page as a big change.
And then we'll go next to page 6, expenses for the power plant. Well, the first account, salaries and supervision, is just mostly all labor for the plant.
Excuse me, for some reason, I think it's page 4 for you.
Yeah.
Page 4, okay. As Chris mentioned in the beginning, we figured a 2% increase for labor cost. And the other supplies and materials are, you know, vehicle equipment, safety equipment, station expenses for the cooling tower and boiler plant, water treatment, maintenance for the vehicles, supplies, fuel, natural gas. You see the increase there for the increased amount of steam going to one of our process customers. Otherwise, there's really no big changes on that page. If you have any questions, if you don't have any questions, I'll move on to page 5. Production maintenance, that's, you know, replacement of our tools and equipment in our boiler plant and generation, gas turbines. Nothing, no big changes there either with our gas turbines. We have a couple of the emissions tests next year. We have to test number 7 for NOx emissions and number 5 gas turbine for opacity. On to page 6. The big one there is the purchase power, and actually a decrease there, you know, due to the projections in revenue, or the projections in our commodity sales.
Are we not projecting much of a change in our incoming rate next year?
Basically, we found out that with Heartland Consumer Power District, there'll be no rate increase for 2016. We did build a 2.5% rate increase into the purchase power account, just in case, because at the time of the budget, we didn't know. They were actually anticipating 5%. So we have a portion of our energy which is purchased through Heartland, and then the other portion is purchased through MISO. And we were anticipating that MISO is going to stay about the same. It's all dependent on what gas prices do, but we're kind of looking at gas prices kind of maintaining the same level as what they are this last year. So right now, we have 2.5% increase budgeted in there. With that, we're able to still keep our fuel cost adjuster at the same amount as last year. So there's not going to be a published rate increase, or there will not be an adjustment within the energy acquisition adjustment either.
So we'll move on to capital now, or?
Are you done? Yes. So we go to page.
We'll go next to my capital accounts. That's on page 19. For the building account, we want to seal coat the turbine room roof, budgeted $25,000 for that. Then, of course, you know, the boiler plant, we have the burner upgrade for number 2 boiler, $700,000 on that. Replacement of a water column on number 2 boiler, $16,000. Turbine number 7, inlet filters, $10,000. Machinery and equipment, miscellaneous equipment, I got $16,000, and number 2 feed water pump overhaul, $75,000.
Gary, could you, I think for the benefit of those watching and maybe the board here, you know, just kind of give a 1 or 2, 3 sentence explanation of what these things are, rather than just, you know, letters on paper. What, yeah, obviously, I think we know what a roof replacement is on the turbine roof, but the number 2 boiler upgrade, what does that entail?
Well, we just went out for bids on that, and the lowest bid came in is gonna actually replace the 2 lower burners with brand new gas burners. The controls will remain the same. That's just about it. There'll be some changes with the gas regulation and the fuel train.
And
And
why
then
would
we'll
we
also
do that?
increase the capacity of the boiler from about 35,000 up to about 67, 68,000.
It's also going to provide a secondary redundancy for the steam system for our industrial customers, as well as low pressure, I believe, too. So if the main, I think the thought is we're actually going to switch over and use that. Are we going to use that boiler for?
Actually, number 2 boiler is gonna be a workhorse
Right.
once we make the upgrade.
Yeah, and then the boiler we're using currently is going to be our secondary, so.
Okay. And tell us what a water column,
That's connected to the steam drum. It gives you the water level in the boiler. It's, you know, becoming obsolete, just upgrading it for parts availability. Inlet filters, you got to filter the air going into the inlet of the gas turbine or the jet engine to prevent, what do they call that, you know, little nicks and stuff in the blades that can cause cracking and eventually lead to a catastrophic failure. Miscellaneous equipment, sometimes we have to buy valves that are leaking or safety valves and stuff like that. Feed water pump overhaul, we always used to do that in-house, but we need some work done in the pump casing itself, so we're gonna have to send it out.
okay, thank you.
The inlet filter, you won't inhale a squirrel, is what you're telling us?
Okay, Larry?
I think we have to go back to page 9. And the only thing that's really changed is we added about $5,000 to the station equipment account. And part of that account is for the SCADA subscription, which is pretty expensive, but we're doing a lot of relay and control equipment things out in some of these substations. And I think we'll get to it down the road here a little bit more with the station equipment, but basically what's happening is when XL built that substation out here on the west side of town and brought the new lines in, we never really looked at how that would change on our relays at the north side sub. And there's another account where we've got more money put in for this very thing, is trying to network that substation so that we have more use out of it, and we can change things around a little bit. But right now with our relays, from what I'm understanding, is we're looking all the way to Franklin if there's a fault. So we need to pay to upgrade that, and we're gonna have to have some consulting that's already trying to be in touch with XL, and we're gonna have to work with XL Energy, and so it's gonna take some time and some effort, but I think overall that's what we're after.
I think realistically, it's a coordination between the New Ulm Public Utilities and Excel. And if our systems aren't synchronized, something happens too far away, a power outage, we'll feel it, and it'll blow us off the system. So, it's just something that kind of came to light in the last probably 3 months when we started looking at the north side sub. And just resulting of Excel upgrading their system, and so now we have to make adjustments also. And there may be some benefits to us by doing this, not only for just the outages, but also kind of reinforcing that communication with where we're getting our power from. Trying to reflect as two electric organizations, as compared to they're the big dog and we just do whatever they tell us, kind of a thing. Likely that's still gonna happen, but this is something where both of us really need to work together on.
Yeah, I think, not to overspeak, but I think Jim was trying to work with XL before he left on this. He kind of saw it as, right now, we've got one line coming in, and we've got a line coming in on the north that goes to the north side sub, but right now, all three of our subs are connected on one line, and if we network this properly and we work with XL and change some relays and stuff, we can possibly feed that from another way so that if we have a bump on that line, it's not taking out all three subs. And I think that's kind of what Jim was after.
Right.
But when we started digging into it, XL really didn't want to touch it. It's gonna take some doing, so it's kind of in the process. So, Chris, do you have anything on 10? I got my notes, you take that. Okay, moving on to, let's see.
We'll go to 12. We'll do the capital at the end, so let's go to page 12.
I believe the only thing that really changed on this entire page is I went up about $4,000 on customer service expense account. And the reason I did that is because over the last couple years, we're seeing a lot more delinquents, and we're spending a lot more time having to drop what we're doing and go and connect and reconnect and disconnect. And so it's starting to, I'm just trying to get the account up to where it's gonna handle some of that. But other than that, that page really hasn't changed any.
So that customer service expense, that's what that covers, is connects and reconnects for the most part?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, when they have to go out to the pole.
Yeah.
Otherwise, our meter department does some of that as well. But if they have to go out and they have to pull it off of the pole, then the electric distribution department gets called.
It would be the corresponding maybe it doesn't cover everything, but a revenue that shows up, because if they're going out to disconnect and reconnect, there's charges that the customer has to pay. So even though this may go up, there is a revenue stream that comes back in to cover.
And then, page 13. I've got an account on meters and meter parts, about quarter of the way down the page. I went from 11,000 to 25,000. For whatever reason, we just haven't been, we've been over budget on what we've been putting into that. So primarily, I'm just putting in enough to cover that account. The last couple of years, we've been way over. So I'm just bringing it up to speed where it probably should have been for a while. And then lines transformers right below it too. I went from 5,000 to 10,000 on that, and you know, you can see that in 2014 we had a tough year. I think we've had a hit on this account this year too, so I went up another 5,000, and part of it is a lot of these transformers have been out there long enough where they're starting to rust through, we're starting to have problems, we're having to paint more of them. It's more maintenance than anything. We've had some lightning hits. Then I would say, page, Chris, do you take these?
Page 14 is depreciation, so that's just a calculation, straight line depreciation calculation of the electric distribution assets. 15 is capital, so we can save that towards the end. Page 16.
16, most of this, up on top, is just payroll and benefits. So it's just been calculated out for any increases.
It's got a 2% increase.
It's got a 2%
basically.
increase. So then if we go to page 18, and Chris, this is administration account, but I know what.
Consulting services.
What's that?
Consulting services.
Yeah, the consulting services, we usually have, well, 2015, we had 50,000 budgeted. Steve had that in there. Before Jim left, he had me go up 50,000 in that account. And he wanted extra money in there for consulting for this MCR transmission study that he was in the process of doing. So, having said that, I mean, I didn't take it out. I don't know, moving forward, where you guys want to go with this. But it's something that we can talk about. So for now, I just as soon leave it in there until we decide what direction you want to take. Other than that, you know, now we're back on 19.
Just done.
And I've got some items in here now. Actually, most of that's capital then, right, Chris?
Yep, so basically,
So,
you're
know,
at
if
the
you-
capital.
yeah, if you want to follow along, maybe easier on this,
Sure.
which would be page 21. Kind of puts a 5-year plan together, and it kind of tells what some of these capital improvements and plans are. Some of this stuff is pretty much budgeted in every year, like the future subdivisions, where a lot of this revenue we get back. And so then if we go down a little farther, the one big one that stands out is the 250 for the new feeder. As you recall, this year we put the infrastructure in. We've got all the pole boxes and all the conduits, and the pads are all all in, and now this coming year is gonna be the big expense in the wire primarily. So that's what that is for, and that is what we're trying to figure in for next year is installing the wire and getting this thing up and running, so we've kinda got a feeder backed up there if we need it. Obviously, there's new service installations every year, and we get a portion of that back. So, then moving on to the overhead to underground conversions. These are all projects that were kinda on the book this last year, and we didn't get to them because of workload, and so we carried them over. There is one of them. Let's see here. Somewhere, Chris, we had one that we added to.
The Oakwood.
But anyway, that's basically what those all are, is their conversions. They're from overhead to underground. And just to bring you up to speed for, we picked these places because they're in tough places to get to. We pick them because they're pretty much prone to bad weather. We're kind of picking and choosing the ones up on the hill first and trying to get out of those grass alleys and all the places that we can't get to in storms. So that's kind of where we go.
It's just curiosity, there's one listed, maybe this one you were looking for, there was one that was increased from 10,000 to 40,000. It's
And
Highway
that,
14 West Farm Site.
that would be the one, yes. Thank you.
What is that?
That is basically behind Hunter's Den.
Okay.
When they changed that road for Coles Wilbert and they went to the property lines and everything, we had to remove a bunch of overhead there. And we just thought it would be time to get rid of that whole mess. It's in places we can't get at it, and,
Okay.
you know, so that's, and we added the other 30,000 so that we could put a pad mount transformer at Hunter's Den and get rid of that overhead, and also cold storage there, so we could clean that up. So that's where the increase came in on that.
I think, just for everybody that's here and also in the audience watching at home, that when we talk about we can't get to it, it's in nice weather we can get to it. It's when it's raining out and the big trucks, will sink into the mud and you just can't get to those locations. And so by eliminating the overhead, that removes the need to even take a truck, into an area that
Right.
you might get stuck in.
Yeah, and I should clear that up too, by putting it underground too, we lose the ice potential
Right.
and the down lines and the winds and all those things too, so some of these places, it makes sense to go underground, it just helps your system out. Moving forward, on the north side sub, we have put $40,000 in, and that is basically for the networking with relays and things like that we had talked about, for coordinating with XL Energy, and we've already touched base on all of that. So then I've got $20,000 in for meters and meter instruments for new installations, which is pretty much a every year thing. And then the ERT program, we've got about, if I'm not mistaken, we decided to do half this year and half next year to finish this up. So instead of having a big push out there again and a big expense, we just decided to split it for 2 years. So that's the 25,000. Now comes to your streetlight installation. Steve has always put 15,000 in here, and a lot of times we don't really touch it, but it's for new streetlights. And I guess this is for a conversation maybe later at this point. If you guys want to start seeing more LED, this is a place to maybe put a little bit more money into, and we can You know, there's several streets right now that if they're doing all the improvements where they're tearing the curb out and the water and the sewer, we automatically put new lighting in. There are streets that they just do the tar and they resurface it, and everything is good and in place for many years. These might be places that, now that the lighting is starting to come down a little bit, it would be a good place to stick some money maybe in LED lighting. And depending on how aggressive you guys wanna get, you people, you know, we can sure look at that for maintenance projects. I do have some facts, but we can go over that at another time too, on some of the savings and things like that, but
I think the idea would be that we would probably try to find an area. I think Larry has a couple places that he has in mind, and calculate up some costs and get some payback numbers, and that probably will be a presentation to the commission at some time in 2016. And at that point, you can decide if that's a project that you would like to proceed with or not. But we put money in the budget right now because that's kind of the idea, that we'd like to maybe start, you know, knocking off sections of town to possibly start doing.
Do you generally spend this 15 every year?
We do not.
You do not.
We do not. I think Steve did a street lighting project a couple years back. There are some grant funds that are available through Heartland Consumer Power District. They'll give up to $5,000 for energy conservation program. And street lighting, LED lighting is a big one.
Yeah.
You can't get it every year, but I think we were thinking next year we might try to apply for those funds too. So, you know, that would maybe allow us to do $20,000 worth of street lighting, so.
yeah, I think what you're gonna see is you're gonna see the HPS lighting start to slowly be phased out, kinda like the mercury vapor. And as you know, we've got a lot of lighting, so it's, you know, I think it's half the wattage for LED lighting, so you're saving a little bit on your energy costs. But I think where you really get the savings down the road is you're not visiting these places time after time after time, changing out light bulbs, changing out heads. I mean, your LED lights are supposed to last, and there's very little things that can go wrong with them. So technically that's probably your best savings right there, is instead of sending 2 people in a truck out to all these lights over and over and over again, you get away from that. So,
The city buys the electricity from us, don't they? For running the streetlights? Or not?
Well, there is a $2 charge within the meter charge on a customer bill that helps pay for street lighting. And we maintain them, and then that $2 charge comes to us to help offset the electrical costs.
There have been some, you know, smaller communities who have done their entire community under some grant program.
Yeah.
But, you know, if Larry, you know, if you had an idea what it would cost to do the entire city,
it would be millions,
it'd be millions of dollars,
Yeah.
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 So,
You know, your payoff would take a long time, but at least you're starting, you know, and that's the good part. And the other part is, if we have a snowplow or a vehicle or something take out a light, we're not gonna stick an LED light in the middle of all these HPSs. I mean, I'd get all kinds of phone calls, you know. So it's just something to think about. There are places in town that, like I say, the roadway has been redone. These are Cobra heads with taller standards that cost a lot less than the Acorn. And so we could potentially knock out a couple projects a year on something like this.
So in the down the road this year, sometime you're bringing us some ideas on how we could approach this?
Yeah, we can sure we'll look into it more, and I do have a very knowledgeable lighting engineer that we work with too.
Okay.
And he's more than happy to come down and tell you the ins and outs of it, you know. He'll do it anytime, so.
I think we'd like to see it, wouldn't we?
Yeah, when we started switching over to the LEDs, I don't know how many years ago that's been, but you know, that was a presentation, you know, to the PUC to kind of talk about the pros and cons. And I know we had, I think, 4 different LED lights of varying wattages, and we tried to select the one that was the brightest at the lowest cost, you know, lowest wattage and that. And so we've gone through a lot of that work. So I think it's more along the lines of how do we want to run a program to, what are the parameters? Do we do, when you do a mill and overlay, are those the streets plus their total reconstructs? Or do you want to just, much like our sidewalk program, identify what we consider the worst areas and do them first? You know, so I think setting up some way of putting a program together, I think would be beneficial for the PUC to see.
Sure.
Maybe it has to do with how old the light fixtures are, and maybe it needs to be coordinated with our street program. But
You know, and the other part of this too is technology on this stuff is relatively new. It's changing all the time. And you want this, but you settle for this, and about the time you pull the trigger on it, this comes out. So it's kind of a,
But you can never chase that.
no.
Because the alternative there is you're just gonna sit back and wait for 10 years and hope that it's mature by then you're gonna jump.
And we do have one light that has 3 different wattages, and all we have to do is change the plug. So if it's not giving the light that people want, we just turn it up a little bit. You know, and the technology's really coming out there where some of them have dials. You can just crank them up, you know, some of them are on timers. It's pretty amazing. It just depends how much you want to get into it and how much you want to spend.
Everything up on Summit Avenue, is that all LED?
That's all
That's all the
LED.
new LED up
Yeah.
there is, okay.
And then I think that I've pretty much got one more page. And staying on the capital, this is pretty much trucks and equipment. I have got a 2003 Chevy that needs to be replaced, and I've got 30,000 in the budget for that. It's 12 years old. It's got 100 and some thousand miles on it, and it's just plain wearing out. I'm starting to put a lot of stuff into it. And then the big one is the aerial truck. This particular truck is 12 years old too. I'm on the 3rd engine, I believe. The first one they replaced on their account, I think. But it's just getting tired. This is our maintenance crew, our duty crew. This one's the one that's out all the time. It's got a lot of miles on it. The pumps are going bad. You know, the hydraulics are getting wore out. So I think it's time for this one to go. And this is a high estimate too, I might add. So I'm hoping that we find one that goes below that
Is there any residual for that?
as far.
trading value.
Value, selling it?
You know, we always look at trading them in, and I guess there's a couple different philosophies out there. There's some of these people that say, let's get rid of our pickups every 5 years and get 11 to 15,000 in trade-in. Or the philosophy is, let's run them until there's nothing left of them and hope they don't cost us a lot of money in the process. I've seen both here. I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. We're just starting to get a little bit older fleet now. We're hanging on to them longer, but part of that is too that we're not doing a lot of aerial. We're maintaining, we're not building. So these trucks, they seem to last a little bit longer than, you know, we used to trade them off every 10 knowing that it was taking a year and a half to get a new one. So now they're 11 and a half, 12 years old.
Yep.
So we're trying to hang on to them longer, and we are taking care of them the best we can, but
They all look nice.
yeah. Well, like
When I
say,
see them out on the road, I never see one that looks like a rolling piece of junk.
yeah. And
It's
you know,
just the inside parts that are,
Yeah.
they take very good care of
Yeah.
their equipment.
and thank the guys, I thank the guys for that, but, you know, we've got a skid loader and a mini excavator that are coming up probably next year. You'd be hard pressed to find paint off of some of this equipment, but they're getting a ton of hours, and the engines are starting to lose power, and, you know, how much do you wanna put into them before they just start costing us more than it's worth? You know, just they're very, you know, what they're made for is basically you're beating on them, you know, so that's kinda where we're at there. And having said that, I've got a trencher that's a 2003. I'd like to replace that. It's 12 years old. It was one of the first models made of its kind. And it's been a good trencher, but it's just wore out. And we've had it forever, primarily because we started having contractors put our underground services in for many, many years. Part of that was because we didn't have the time. We were doing a lot of big projects. Now we're having problems finding a contractor that will put them in. They're all busy. So we have went back to doing it ourselves, and we're starting to replace parts at a regular basis. The engines are way undersized. I mean, it's time. This one's tired too. So, and then the last thing I guess that I have, it's a vacuum excavator, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically it has a power wand or a water wand, like a pressure washer, and you can go down and cut through the earth, and this sucks it all up as you're cutting it. My opinion is it's probably one of the best pieces of equipment they've ever made. You're saving on labor, you're saving on work comp claims, and more importantly than that, you're probably saving on a lot of shovel nicks, cut-ins with your cables. This thing will go down and find everything you need, and you move on to the next hole, and you're staying ahead of the game. So it makes the process that much easier, and it's better on the whole system. So what we're looking for is, we have split this between 3 departments, and we're looking at purchasing a second one. We're pretty much standing in line for this thing all summer long, and we're putting more underground in all the time. I mean, there's always new uses for this thing. It's a piece of equipment that saved us a lot of time and energy, so.
And just as an aside, all the capital items will come back at another PUC meeting when we get around to getting bids, and we'll get, authorization to. So it'll be a second justification. Here, we're just telling you what we think we need, and when we actually bring it to you, we're saying this is when we want to fill it.
Okay. That it for
That's pretty much
electrical?
it for
Thank
me.
you.
If you guys are, no questions for anybody?
Thank you, Larry and
Thank
Gary.
you.
Yes, sir.
Sewer never takes long. More reasons than one.
We're gonna start with STEAM on page 23, and then since George does both, we'll probably go right into water right after that, so.
Okay, we do a similar thing with water and steam as the electric does for the sales. We do a 3-year, we're kind of running average. We split it up. Steam is dependent on weather to a large extent. For the residential part, the downtown, the low-pressure steam, the industrial steam for our big customers, that is more consistent and less variable. So there aren't a lot of big changes in there. And that's where we have the big, that's the one changes there.
Right, if you were to look under the industrial sales, under STEAM, you'll see there's an increase of about 650,000. That's due to that one industrial STEAM customer I was talking about with the electric division. We anticipated additional sales.
Page 24 is pretty much our operation expenses. You can see our salaries, our low pressure steam and our high pressure steam. Those are the what I pay to the power plant for the steam. The next page is not very many changes on that, pretty much the same. On the locating for steam, there's not a lot of locating we have to do for steam. But when we have a capital project, when we're doing a big replacement, which you'll see on our capital plan, then we have a little more locating that has to be done. But the locating expense for steam is pretty low. On the next page, 26, we have meters and regulators and mains and accessories. We've been running a little bit over on those the last year and last 2 years, and so we've put a little bit of money into increasing our coverage for that. The next one, 27, is just customer service and depreciation. We don't have a lot of customer service expense. And we'll go skip the capital for this. Page 29. There's not a lot of big changes here. Pretty much the same. We have some reductions in some of our expenses there. Page 30, no big changes there. On page 31, we've got changes in consulting charges. One of the things that I want to do, coming back after 15 years away, I see some changes in things, and I wanted to get a consulting engineer to come in and do an evaluation of the low pressure and high pressure steam system to see if there's changes we need to make, what kind of changes there might be, just to, I don't think it's been studied for a long time, and I think it's time we need to, see what the future is, what demands there might be, and what things we can do to be more efficient and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And then if we go to page 32, you can see our capital projects. Just to touch base on the vehicles, the reason it only shows 3,000 there, we split the cost of our vehicles 90% for water and 10% for steam. So that's why those are seemingly so low. We can't get a vehicle for $3,000 anymore. But the mains low pressure, we have a list of projects, and if you look on the page 33, you can see a 5-year plan. We used to do steam projects. Historically, we put in the capital, we covered just our expenses, or our equipment, our materials, and then we provide the labor from our department to do the work. We don't generally get into doing those projects as much anymore. It's usually more efficient to hire somebody to do that work. People who are always doing the steam work are better at welding the steam, more experienced at it, and they can just, and then if we're trying to do it ourselves and we have a water main break, we're going to stop that steam project and go fix the water main break. We don't have enough people to keep all these, juggling them in the air. So this one project is to replace, let's see, this is Main on 2nd North from German Minnesota Street to power plant. That used to be one of the feeds that came to the low pressure system. it more or less fell apart and was abandoned. And we've been relying on just the one service. And this summer, we had a leak on the one service that supplies the downtown. And for the most part, we could make a repair in the summertime. But there are 3 customers that need steam all the time. And one of them, well, 2 of them, we actually had to shut off while we did it. We couldn't supply them. They had to shut down. And Kaiserhoff was one of them. And so we need to have a backup. We need to have redundancy to get service so that we can work on one side to the other side and not have to shut customers completely out.
Do the condensate return lines get replaced also when you guys do a section?
Yeah.
Do them both?
And that was rebudgeted. We increased it a little bit because some of our costs have gone up on the materials. If this gets approved in the final budget, we will probably go out and get bids on the piping and valves because it's such a long lead time that we need to get those ordered as soon as we can. And we can get some discounts by doing it in the wintertime than the fall.
I have just a question back on page 23 on your sales, both the industrial fuel adjustment and the industrial sales. Did I understand you right that that was due to one customer, that increase?
On the industrial sales? Mhm.
Yeah, and the industrial fuel adjustment, both are due to one customer?
Yes.
Right. Mhm.
Okay.
And we actually were relatively conservative. They gave us some higher anticipated sales numbers.
Okay.
And we actually were significant. We put a lower number within the budget.
Okay.
Just to be safe.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the steam? If not, we'll go on to the water. It's on page 44. Again, we try to do a 3-year running average, trying to alleviate some of the variation due to weather, but residential sales is heavily influenced by the weather. A lot of water gets used for watering grass. I like the revenue, but by myself, I wouldn't water grass. It's drinking water, so I just have problems with that. But it does bring in the revenue when people water their grass. There's no doubt about that. And so you can see, been pretty conservative on the expectations there. One of the things that Chris was mentioning, and we noticed this 15 years ago as well, especially with water, demands, we had gotten into the idea that we could expect a 2 to 3% growth in demand every year. And even 15 years ago, that didn't work out. And as people were remodeling houses, putting in new, more water efficient equipment, and as new housing goes in, it's all mandated by federal law how the manufacturers make the stuff now. So it has to be more efficient on water use, but that does affect our revenues. But we're projecting it to be pretty flat. On page 45, there's not a big change except the electricity. When we had done the budgets and, last year, we really didn't cover quite our expenses. for electricity, so that we bumped that up to get it more in line with what has been in the past. Our chemical supplies, we're expecting them to go down in cost, so not much other things going on there. On page 46, most of the changes were reductions. There aren't any increases there. On page 47, oh, that's the capital, we'll cover that, the other thing. 48, pretty much everything stayed the same here except our locating towards the, where we go from 24,000 to 35,000. 35,000 is more like what we had been doing in the past. And the locating expense for the water department has increased quite a bit, but there's some developers putting in developments. One of the things has happened is some of the people putting in underground things are calling in multiple locates that they know they can't get done in a year, but it shows up on our list, and so we have to do it. And then they show up again the next year, and we have to do it, and it costs us time and money. And so that's why I've increased that.
Is there a way of getting around that?
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah.
It'd be better if the Go for One people would limit what these,
A developer is trying to do in 1 year, or?
yeah, or if they know they're not gonna get to it,
Right,
don't put it out there.
right,
But we have no control over it. So.
right.
And there's not a lot of recourse for us right now. But I sure, if there was a mechanism within the Go for One, I'd sure use it, but I haven't found it yet. On page 49, not a lot of changes there, except there is a change on service line repairs. By doing an annual leak detection, we are better able to stay up on top of leaks. And this is a service line repair. This is for us, our service line going from the main to the curb stop for the customers. And when we have a leak detection, a lot of the leaks that we find aren't water main leaks, they're service line leaks. And for instance, this week we're working on, we started one on Payne Street, and ours was leaking, and we dug it up and to repair it. We found the customer's was leaking at the same time. We told them, and they got a hold of their plumber so they could use that excavation. It would save them money to do it at the same time, and they did, and we're filling it in this afternoon. So we are seeing more expense for that. Some of the work that is done when we have when they do street projects, they go down. Some of the projects, they do the water and the sewer. Some of those services, they reconnect the old service to the main. It would, by my thinking, be more cost-effective in the long run if we would do it all the way to the curb stop with new. And then everything, the water main and the services would all be the same age. So if you put an old piece of copper on a new water main line, sometimes that copper will last a long time, sometimes it won't. And if they were all the same age, they'd be better tied together. Everything else on here, except if you go down to Northside Booster Station, we've increased that from 9,000 to 5,000 expense. There was a water, there's a water study done when they were thinking about replacing the Herman Heights Tower and putting a new tower in. They did a study there that said we should have an additional pump in a Northside booster station. That has been installed. It is put into our new SCADA system, and it'll be operational. So it's going to be a little more expensive to run at that location because we'll have, instead of like a 100-gallon-a-minute pump, it'll be a 800-gallon-a-minute pump. So it's just, but it will pump more water for us. Yeah, that's pretty much it on that. On page 50, there's nothing really increased except depreciation. And then we'll leave 51. There isn't a lot that has increased here. We've increased some of the education, travel and conferences. We require all of our people working for us to be certified operators. By being certified operators, they're required by the state of Minnesota to have so much continuing education training every year and to keep their licenses up to date. So this is one of the ways that we provide for that. Page 53, no real change there. On page 54, we didn't increase it this year over last year, but we are expecting to spend another $20,000 on consultant services. We're doing an upgrade of what they call it, not an upgrade, they call it an amendment. Every 10 years we have to do in Minnesota a wellhead protection amendment, which basically is to do a whole new wellhead protection plan from scratch. And they require us to hire a consultant. We can't do it without hiring a consultant under Minnesota Department of Health rules. And so that's where the majority of this money is right now. If we don't use all of it, I'm going to try to have come back later with a proposal to hire a consultant to look at our well field and look at the age of the wells, look how they're producing, and decide if it's, if we need to do more than our regular annual well maintenance. And also, I would like to get our wells out of the floodplain. In 2014, it was 6 weeks that we couldn't get to our wells. We couldn't get vehicles in. Now, we could have taken a boat in. In 1997, we had floods. We had people inside of 5 well buildings 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They each had a frying pan, a radio, and a boat to get away. The water, the river was right here. Our sandbags were right there. And we did some mitigation since then, raised the electronics up and electrical stuff so we can run stuff more reliably without having people there. But we, if it would come to where we had to do some work on a well, we couldn't do it until the water went down. So I don't know if it's possible to get out of the floodplain, but at least I want to look.
How did they use the frying pan to get away?
Paddle the boat. I don't, no, they actually had the frying pan so they could cook their food.
Oh, okay, you just said, they had, power, frying pan, and boat to get away. I thought they used all three.
Yeah, in case the boat got a leak, you had a frying pan to either bail it or sit in it.
They said it was really freaky at 2 o'clock in the morning out there to be
I
the
suspect.
water ripping by them. On page 56 is our 5-year capital plan. And you can see that we have every year put in 50,000 for rehabbing or maintaining wells. I don't know how much was spent while I was gone for 15 years, but wells get old. They reach the end of their life, but the 50,000 a year we use as a way to maintain the wells. Sometimes we might spend that much on one well. Sometimes we might be able to get a couple wells done for that. But we've got that, out there for every year. And after that, under that same account, we have in there, we have a screen, a well. You drill a hole, you put solid pipe down till you get down to where the water is that you want to collect. You put a steel screen down there so that the gravel and everything doesn't get sucked into the pumps. Well, that screen on well 19 has partially collapsed. And I'm told that we can rehabilitate that and get more use out of that well. And that's why we have $140,000 there. We have very good local well people with good equipment for doing that kind of work.
How many years should you get out of a screen like that?
If you don't overpump the well, then the screen should last the lifetime of the well, which would mean 35 years or so.
Okay.
And we have some wells that's worked on. Now, we have 2 wells, well 4 and well 6, which are on this side of the river. Those do not have screens because they're in sandstone. So they're 2 of our oldest wells. Well 6, we don't know when it went in. The people at Pullman Lumber tell me that the well was there when they built their plant when they built their lumberyard there in 1920s. So generally speaking, you can't get that kind of life out of a well. We're continuing on our remote reed changeout of the ERTs. We have $150,000 for next year, and we have for the year after. We're going to try to put more people on this project now that we have a full complement of employees in the wintertime, starting this winter, to try and get 2 or 3 people on it instead of just 1, to where we can get more than 100 of these worked on every month. So I'm hoping to get that wrapped up faster than it shows up on here.
This is where people go around to the houses and change out the little box.
Yep. We have to put a door hanger, then the people call us in, set an appointment, and then we go, and about 80% of the time the people are there, 20% of the time they're not, and then so we have to go get another appointment and go back. But it doesn't take very long. It takes about tops a half hour.
They did mine this year, so.
The difficulty with water is they actually have to get into the house,
Yeah.
whereas, gas and electric, they can just go there, do it, and you probably don't even know whatever happens. So
Yeah.
it just takes longer, and it's a little bit more costly to do the water
Mhm.
change-outs.
And then in some places, the people don't know where the meter is. so. And some places, people have built over the meters over the years, and it's against the policy, but that, they just, when they're remodeling down there, we're not going there all the time, so they don't think about it. The next items are two pickups. And again, we have 30,000 there, and then 3,000 on the steam for these. These are all over 11 years old. And the one we've got there with the snow plow, we anticipate we'll get a new plow at the same time. And we do generally get some money trade-in. We try to trade them in. They're not all totally falling apart, but they're not, a lot of in-town miles, so. And then the last item in the capital budget for water is under the Vactron vacuum, that's the water department's share of that Vector trailer system. Any questions?
Just as an aside, we also, will put the trucks up for, dibs, if they're not traded in for other departments, whether it's the city or other PUC departments. And sometimes a lot of park and rec vehicles come through the system because they're just summer vehicles. They don't need to be brand new vehicles. So we probably have to keep moving if we're gonna meet our 5 o'clock.
Hello, I'm Steve with the gas department, assistant supervisor. And for the most part, this was Gary Portner's budget, which he retired just a little over 3 months ago, or 3 weeks ago. So this is all new to me, so. We'll go to page 34. I really don't have anything more on that, except for I know he did a 5-year average on everything through the whole program here.
The other thing I might mention is the outside utility sales, which is about a little over half, the 630,000. That's the revenue we receive from Heartland Corn Products for the capacity that we sell them through Fairfax for natural gas. So, and that's all. And it also is, some of the smaller towns like Tyler, Gibbon, Morgan, we install services and things like that in those towns. So that's revenue that we get from those towns as well.
Okay, page 35. They're pretty much pretty much evened out through the whole page there. I know we raised the meter and regulators up because we're gonna be doing more meter changes this year. We do have a 10-year rotation program for that, and we're gonna start that up now after we put our remote readers on. So that's why that's up a little bit. 37.
That's just standard depreciation, again, straight line. 38, we can skip until the end, that's
Okay.
capital.
Okay. And then for personal services, the benefit part, I know they talked about, they just put in a 2% for pretty much everything there. So, what are you gonna say?
Oh, the one thing I might note is about halfway down the page, there's energy conservation programs. We've always done a furnace, either the furnace cleaning and then the furnace rebate program, and we weren't necessarily required to do that. I think that the customer service coordinator just felt that was a good program to have. We were doing it for air conditioning, and there was always the idea that at some point we might need to do that because we might hit the threshold. Well, we have since hit the threshold. So in 2016, we're required by the Department of Energy to have conservation improvements for the gas department. We have to hit 0.5% of our revenue in conservation programs. So you can see there, we've increased it a little bit, and that's why we'll now be required to do that, so.
Okay. 40. Questions? We'll go to 41. Spencer. And then the capital. We got a few more remotes to do on our larger volume meters that's coming up. And then for the mains, we got two underground vaults we want to replace in 20th South there that's in the street that there are key valves, but we want to update, replace the valves and get those so we can work them above ground. And then for the gas system, we have they're high pressure lines that are put in 59 that we're having corrosion problems with, and they're in the boulevards, and we can't really tear up the curb and gutter to replace them or to work on them, so we're gonna have someone bore in a new plastic line for us for that part. And then the vehicles, the 2000 Ford, that's our service vehicle, it's our duty vehicle. We use that for emergency after hours and weekends, and we just want to keep that up in good working shape, so that's why we want to replace that one. The Ford dump truck, we're having transmission problems and hydraulic problems with that. The transmission's been locking up on us, and also with the hoist. And then we're also involved with the VAC, with the water and electric. Any questions? And that should be it.
That's it.
Thank you. Bring the cookies with you, Dan.
He was just going for one.
Just gonna go get 'em.
Can we do a 5-minute break, just to get out?
Yeah, I was gonna say, could we maybe just even,
5 minutes.
5-minute break.
I don't
mind if you eat cookies when you listen.
yeah, that's,
I'll leave it back to you.
all right.
Hate to choke though, you know?
You want what?
Thomas, what's new?
I just figured I need
Looking
sugar
forward to the
stay awake.
holiday yourself.
Yeah?
First time
Are you
you've seen
leaving
an
or you got
attorney
friend?
in the
I'm
budget.
hosting.
I got one
They're coming
question
down.
here. Mr. O'Connor, if you would.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioners, President Steinke, Dan O'Connor, wastewater supervisor. Thanks for taking some time to listen to our needs here. My budget starts on page 57. I guess maybe down to the utility sales. Like it's been mentioned earlier, sales are a little flat, if not declining. Besides maybe the industrial, I think some of our industries are busier than they've ever been in recent years, so you see a little increase in industrial sales. Overall, sales are pretty close to where they've been the last couple of years. And then maybe the other one, the other on the bottom column, gain on sales of assets, $445,000. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but that's the contributed capital for what engineering has done in the past year as far as infrastructure upgrades.
Yep.
New sanitary lines in the streets. Moving on to page 58, our biosolids operation. We did add another used truck this past year, and the maintenance has gone up a couple thousand. We have two tanker tractors for hauling the biosolids out. We have a bigger tractor and an applicator. Obviously, those vehicles have to be MnDOT inspected every year and recap tires put on, and miscellaneous maintenance for 4 units. Moving down, biosolids management. That's labor for my assistant taking care of all the reporting and things in regards to that program. And then you can see the next one went to zero, biosolids land management. It's something that we added back in 2013 just to track how much we were paying to lease 61 acres and hire a farmer to plant it and harvest it for us. Well, we lost that lease, so that fee has gone away. We still sort of have first rights to get to that field. That was done back in the day to have a sort of an emergency 60 acres to put biosolids on if we got in a pinch. Every spring, we're sort of tight as far as time. You have road restrictions, you have wet weather, you have farmers that want to get their crops in on a certain date. And that was done back, in the, I want to say, early 90s, just to have that sort of emergency 60 acres. So that went away. Like I said, we still will have first dibs. The same farmer that farmed it for us is leasing it and farming it. So
you're saying you could use it if you had to?
we still will use it.
You will.
We'll probably apply every year on it.
Okay.
So we'll still have that opportunity. And then moving down, another one that's been bouncing all over, biosolids hauling. You can see it was 55,000 until 14, and we sort of lowballed it last year because we said we were going to buy a truck. Well, the truck didn't get purchased until after the spring haul, and we still do rely on some contract haulers, and they generally charge anywhere from $80 to $100 an hour. So if this spring we contracted two trucks every day we were out in the field, and that's a quick couple $1,000 a day to have those contract haulers. We usually run about 10, 11, 12-hour days, and we do have our own labor in there as well. So you can see that number went back up to about 35 this year, or moving into 16. And that's will be our labor, and then we will bring in a contract hauler when we get a little further away from the plant, just for timing. Moving on to page 59, maintenance ATAD. You can see the last couple of years it's been about a third of what it used to be, and really some of these earlier numbers, 12, 13, 14, don't really reflect what we stuck into that. I want to say 2011 is the first year we actually had a maintenance ATAD. It used to all fall under the plant, and it's something that we broke out once again, just sort of track. The reason it's been so low is we haven't done a lot because we're looking at doing a capital project over there in 16 that I'll talk about in detail a little bit later. Moving on to page 60. The top one is salaries. I guess another one that's up a little bit is your vehicle and equipment diesel. Like I said, we did add a third tractor tanker for biosolids, which runs on diesel, so that's why that fee is up a little bit. Chemical and supplies, we feed chlorine and sulfur dioxide seasonally to meet regulations on our fecal coliform, and then the big part of that would be our ferric chloride, which is iron salt, which is used to precipitate phosphor salt, which we add seasonally to meet our phosphorus limitations on our NPDS permit. Laboratory supplies and expenses to keep our certified lab running every year. And then you can see we added a new one here, camera supplies and maintenance. We bought a camera truck here back in 2013, and obviously there is some maintenance, and we've had some camera failures and had to call tech support and send equipment back to Aries, and we just wanted to start a fund there once again to try to track how much besides labor that operation costs us. Safety equipment you can see is up a little bit. We do have a lot of different motors and mixers and things that don't have their individual safety or hoists, so to say, so we're always looking at trying to save employees' backs and upgrade and add more winches and hoists to make the maintenance a little bit easier. Moving down to other services, industrial sampling is just labor to go out and sample and check out all the industries in town. Outside lab tests, you can see that number's been sort of up and down. We do have a certified lab, but there is a lot of analysis that gets too cost inhibitive to do just because of the expense of some of the equipment that you need to run some of the analysis. And then electricity, you can see that one is was as high as $324,014, and the last couple of years we've kept it just under $300,000. A couple of years back we put in some high efficiency blowers, which took that electricity down by roughly $100,000 annually in electricity. So gas, you can see it peaked out at $54,014. We're on schedule to spend about $35,000 this year. The price has come down. Other than that, we'll move on to page 61. On the top, that's just more salary supervision, and that's the 2% increase. Maintenance building, we put $34,000 in 15, and we did some tuck pointing on some of the outbuildings we have at the wastewater plant, and that's why it was a little bit higher in 15. But our plant is 40 plus years old, so there's always different tuck points and things like that we have to do. Door maintenance, maintenance of plant, garbage disposal. Anybody have any questions? Next page is just appreciation of all the equipment we have. 63 is capital, so we'll move on to 64. You can see that's another labor account, sort of up and down, but that is something we added when we added that camera truck. You can see it's on the collection end of it, and that's just the time for the person that's out videotaping the sanitary, which is obviously seasonally, and so it's not a year-round operation. And the lift stations just operations, just utilities. And page 65, sewer lifts. Once again, maintenance on our lift stations, and then the collection system is something that we give the street department every year because they actually maintain our lines. They run the jetter truck. That 144 also, a majority of that goes into a sinking fund, so they can go and purchase a new vac jetter truck every 10 to 12 years. 66 is a lot of things that we don't really have control over. Chris does most of this page for me. What could I pick out? Travel, conference, and schools, we have 8,500. We have 10 people out there. 9 people carry some sort of license. If it's not a wastewater, it's also a water. and then all of us carry type 4 biosolids licenses through the state, so we have to do the continuing education hours, and that's a big part of that. Back up, a couple lines up from travel, conference, and school. Communications, 7,800, it's now 21,700. That was a capital, something I looked at as capital. We have the Motorola radios that we all carry around for communication, interdepartmental. And I don't know when we got those radios initially, probably 12 years ago. We still have about 5 of those hanging around, and then 4 or 5 years ago I bought 6 more. So half of us have, 12-year-old radios, and half of us have 6-year-old radios. So we're gonna go and get 12 brand new radios. Everybody will have one on their belt, and we'll have a couple spares on different desks. So that's why that account is up. So I think that quote was just shy of $12,000 for those radios and bases.
Let me ask you, would it be, $12,000 is a lot for radios, would you not use cell phones? Would
Well,
it be cheaper to get 12 cell phones?
probably yes and no. Cell phones aren't as reliable as these radios, and every department carries them. So we can go and talk to Joe from the wastewater plant, turn a dial, and talk to Joe from the gas department, turn the dial, and talk to Jeff from engineering. So I think it's a good thing.
And I think too, the whole department is scanning. I mean, they can hear what everybody is saying when you're talking on them as well. Where, cell phone, it's just a direct communication to one individual where, you might have 3 guys working on a project. They're all able to communicate with each other, if somebody's down in the control room and the other guys are up in the field and they're trying to coordinate things. It would be hard to do on a cell phone, I think.
And everybody's got AT&T or Verizon or Sprint or T-Mobile. They're all really good in some places. We have a tunnel system at the plant where if you're in the tunnel system or on the 5th floor downstairs at 20th Street, you're not going to have any cell service. With these radios, you're gonna hear something. It might just be a scratch, but at least you might know that you should maybe contact somebody else. So every department has these radios. We've had them for Bob Stevenson days, I believe. And initially, it was really, do we need these? But I think they're a nice tool to have versus that cell phone. Like you said, everybody's got them, but these radios we have them maintained every year. Motorola comes in and we take them all to the MDC and they go through and they check them over and check your battery strength and replace batteries if you need to. And we're at the point right now, like I said, these 6 old ones, we can't even get batteries for them. And the gas department will carry ones that are intrinsically safe, where they're explosion proof, and there's a lot of benefits to these radios.
The other side to the whole issue is that the radios perform the backup backbone system in emergencies.
Yeah.
Tornado comes through, knocks all the towers down.
Yeah.
The whole system is set up as a radio system after that.
Yeah.
All right, well, looking down on that, other services, we have, IT support, we have subscriptions and memberships. We're a member of MeServe. Our permits, fees, and leases permits would be MPCA permit fees, and then just some general accounts there. And then that transfer on the bottom, the 250 is what we give to city engineering every year for their rework around town as far as reconstructs or extensions of the service line. $1,000 for office furniture and equipment. $10,000 on page 68 for consulting services. And then some debt service. So we can go back to, where do we want to go to 69 first?
Let me just touch base on 66. That's $250,000 that he alludes to. Again, both water and sewer provide funding for the extensions, the replacement of, water and sewer in the streets. And then it comes back to the PUC, as infrastructure. So PUC pays it to the city constructs it, and then at the end of the year, we give it back to the PUC as pipe in the
Contributed capital.
ground.
Contributed capital of 445,000, so.
So it, even though the money comes in one direction, it goes back 12 months later, kind of a thing.
They design and build them, and we own them. Wastewater
Yep.
owns them, like I said, and then the street department maintains them, jets them, cleans them, and now the last 3 years, we've gotten involved a little bit more with that camera truck going in and videotaping, and we're probably 3/4 of the way through the city with that camera truck. We've also made recommendations to engineering as far as maybe changing your 5-year plan, and we've actually been in the street, I think, 3 times doing emergency repairs. So we're a little bit more involved owning that camera truck now, so. If there's no other questions, we'll talk about capital here on page 69. We've got a federally mandated sinking fund that we really don't know if it's federally mandated or not. Originally, the plant was funded with EPA and state grant money. The majority of the plant back in 73, 74 was granted to a lot of communities across the country because of the Clean Water Act. But we've been trying to get a little more aggressive with that sinking fund. I think it has a pretty good balance right now, close to $3 million. We have been tapping into it here the last few years, but as you look at all these numbers that everybody's presenting to you, $150,000 isn't a lot of money in this day and age when you're talking about major infrastructure, pumps, or things like that. So we've been trying to get a little bit more aggressive, sticking more money into that federally mandated sinking fund. We haven't really been able to find any paperwork on. But I think it's just good to do. It's that emergency fund that,
It was it basically was a requirement of getting the funds from the Clean
Water Act.
To put money away for either a future treatment plant, once this plant is no longer, its useful life is done, or for maintenance,
Repairs and
repairs and
maintenance.
maintenance on the existing plant. And so I think the concept is, you're gonna have a new plant, you're gonna put money away, you're not gonna really use it until now we've got a 40-year-old plant, things are starting to happen, there's money available to do some of the maintenance that's needed on that, so, we can find the original documents, it's just,
And there's
They
really
never
there's no
really
guidelines, do you put $10 in the fund or 10 million every year? And like I said, I've been trying to get a little bit more aggressive with it. It's usually one of those numbers that's the first one to get tweaked a little bit to make everything match up at the end of the year. But right now, we're gonna put 150 in this year. I think last year we put 100 in. Last year we put 100 in. The year before 82.5. So we're getting a little more aggressive with that. Other improvements, we talked about retroing the ATAD. We bonded a project back in '96 to put up this biosolids treatment facility, and up until the last few years where we've been swapping parts from other tanks, we've decided to buy $1 million worth of replacement parts. They're built a little bit better. They have better seals, and maybe they're even using a little better steel, but it's obviously a very, very volatile area, and the atmosphere is bad, and it's just sort of nickel and diming us. So we're looking at structurally everything is fine. It's just mechanically we'd like to get a bunch of new equipment and do some routine maintenance every couple of years rather than spend $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 per motor and shaft unit. With that, we're going to add some updated odor control at the ATAD as well, and then another part of the project will be replacing the 400 horsepower Chicago lift pumps at 20th and adding odor control at 20th Street as well. I think we pay off this bond from the original ATAD sometime this year in 16, and this project will keep us at about the same pace as far as what we'd be paying for a 20-year bond. Moving down, replace valves and add a vault valve at Lincoln Lift. We've got lift stations throughout town that have lift pumps to get that sanitary sewer to flow gravity. And this particular lift station, you still have to climb into the lift station to get to the valves. And safety thing, and get the valves in a pit right next to the lift station where above ground, on ground, you can take a wrench and crank the valves and exercise the valves and not have to put individual into a lift station. Office furniture and equipment, office copier. Initially, we were going to trade in our 10-year-old Ricoh copier for a new one, but the new IT guy, there he is, Nate, suggested that we go buy a multifunctional, right?
Yep.
Multifunctional HP copy laser jet for about $600. When you buy a unit like this, you get some more service. They set you up on a service agreement for X amount of copies through the machine, and I think they charge you about $385 a year to come out anytime you have issues and clean it and things like that. But we are going to take Nate's recommendation and buy a industrial grade Hewlett-Packard copy machine and see how that goes for a year. You think of copy machines, they don't have the little inkjet things. They actually have toner cartridges, so it's not a hassle that way. And I think with what we do at the wastewater plant and whatever we can't do there with this copy machine, there's plenty of nice machines up in engineering and GIS department as far as making 11x17s or things like that. And then the last thing is every couple 3-4 years we trade in our John Deere riding lawnmower. We have quite a bit of grass out at the plant, and then we also use this machine with the snowblower attachment to clean all the sidewalks we have at the wastewater plant. So that'll just be a trade-in for a yard machine. Any questions? Comments? Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
I think we'll go to IT, so we can give Nate a chance to do his budget. That will start on page 87, and then I can do administration quickly after.
Okay, on page 87, you'll see our revenue. IT gets its revenue by charging the other departments, both in the city and the PUC, for the services that we provide. And so that's what you see on page 87. I don't think it's actually a decrease in that. I think they're pretty much
Yep.
pretty much the same. On page 88, you have the personnel expenses. Again, same sort of increases as the other departments have had. Office supplies and materials increases a little bit. We have some PCs that'll need some replacement in our own department, some other equipment that we'll need. Other services and charges, you see that there's a little bit of a decrease there. We had some, we maybe overshot a little bit on our licenses and fees this year. So there's a slight decrease there. On page 87, we have, or excuse me, 89, sorry. We have supplies and materials. Again, the expenses stay about the same as this year.
Just curious, back on page 88, license and fees, what does that mean?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We do the licensing for all the software and all the different kinds of, well, not all the different kinds, but many kinds of services that other departments use. So some examples of that is when an Microsoft Office license is needed.
Oh.
That comes through our budget.
Okay.
Other things such as the finance department uses software called Encode for all their budgeting and accounting.
That comes through your office.
That comes through us
All right,
as well.
thank you.
So then moving on to page 90, we have our depreciation. Right now, we don't have a whole lot of depreciation.
Yeah, basically because most of the computers are under $5,000 now, so really the depreciation is on, like, the larger servers, those types of things, and the useful life on those are 3 years. So we depreciate things pretty quickly through the IT department just because everything changes so quickly.
Yeah, and frankly, a lot of our servers are actually quite old now at this point, so, well, relative to IT terms, so.
Computer years.
Next page is our capital expenses. We'll skip that for a moment here. There's on page 92, there's an old line item for licenses and fees. You see that it's 0. So that moves us on to our capital projects. And like Chris said in our introduction, our focus really is on reliability and stability and disaster recovery. So as a part of that, we have 4 older servers that need to be replaced. And we don't have a very good disaster recovery solution right now. We have a bare basic solution. And so our projects for next year, we're hoping to be able to replace those 4 servers and implement a backup solution. The advantage to what we're going to be doing is that, if you have questions on this, let me know, but we're going to virtualize our servers. So basically, using the replacement cost of 4 servers, be able to run all of our servers on essentially brand new hardware. It's an interesting project. If you have questions, you can certainly ask me about it. Usually when I start talking about it, people's eyes glaze over. So. But it is nice because it does get us all new infrastructure for the cost of what it would normally cost to replace just 4 servers. It also builds us some additional capacity and gives us some more flexibility for the demands that departments are starting to ask of us. So we'll have quite a lot of expansion capacity with that. The backup solution, there's a few different solutions that we're looking at right now, and it would give us both on-site and off-site backups, so that in the case that we do have a disaster, we don't lose data.
Is that through like a service, or
Well,
would we be looking at, because you could purchase, there's folks that do this kind of thing for you.
Yeah, and there's quite a few local providers that offer those sorts of solutions, and really we're weighing between 2 different types, really 3 different kinds of solutions, and it'll probably be a hybrid of all of those. Obviously, we'll have an on-site backup as well, just because of speed. We also have facilities that we have fiber connections to within the city limits, so we could locate equipment off-site to another part of town. But yeah, it is nice to get stuff out further than that. I think they say 30 miles is what they want an auditor might like to see you have, and so probably have a combination of those 3 things to get us our good backups. Moving on, other things that we have for software for next year, or capital for next year, is software. The antivirus we were actually able to purchase this year, and it was a very small expense. We were able to buy a 3-year subscription for actually a very reasonable rate. But it actually comes down to miscellaneous software. With the antivirus purchase out of the way, that means we can spend that money on the virtualization project. So that covers a lot of the software expenses for that. The virtualization that I had listed here is actually a bit on the low side, so having that antivirus out of the way helps us pay for that. We also will be able to continue on improving our patch management software and workstation management, which has really been a good implementation for us. And you'll see on page 94 is a 5-year plan to see kind of where we're heading with what kinds of projects we're anticipating down the future. Do you have any questions about this?
I think I'll just point out that Nate has done a very good job of coming into the system and bringing new ideas and new ways of looking at how to get the work done. So, some of the results that you see in his budget by looking at doing things just differently than we have been doing.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Nate.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go through the administration budget. I'll do it pretty quickly so that we can get done here, but, the first page is on page 71. If you look under the sales and services, that's the amount that's reimbursed by, the PUC and the other city departments. So the administration is kind of a catch-all for a multitude of departments, and then that's charged out to the different, the other different departments and is paid in to fund that. So, technically, we try to get this fund back down to a zero, so that it's all allocated out. Page 72 is the meter department. If you look at 72 and 73 as in total, there's about a 26% decrease in expenses, and that's mainly due to the ERT program. You know, we've got one full-time employee now, and we've got a part-time employee who probably works, 10 and a half hours every pay cycle. So we've really kind of brought down the salaries to this department quite a bit through that program. Page 74, you can see this is the administration department, so that's gonna cover our contributions to the any city salaries that we cover. Also, the clerk's office, our finance office up here in this building. It's gonna cover all of the administration staff down in the administration building. And we've got a 0.4% increase with this department. So we've kept costs down. We've got a 2% increase in labor. So obviously, if the labor's going up 2%, there's other expenses that are going down. So we're trying to keep it, under a 2% increase. So we're at 0.4%. Page 75 is administration maintenance. There was a 3.7% increase in office furniture and equipment, and that is basically to replace some computers. We have computers that are still running on XP, and so we need to get those out of the system, and because it's no longer being supported by Microsoft. So we've got a few extra computers in there to do that. Page 76 is administration other. There's a 22% decrease in this department, and that's mainly due to the $30,000 in consulting services. That was for the Hay study and then also for the payroll study that is combined with the city. So we obviously aren't having that for next year, so that's where the decrease is. I'll skip page 77 because that's the administration. We can talk about that later. Page 78 is our customer service operation. There's a 1.5% increase in this department. Basically, it's payroll related. There's a 2% increase for payroll in there. There was a slight increase in the printing and advertising, and that's basically just to get in line with the actual costs. That's going to be a portion of our calendar that's printed, and maybe some other marketing type things that are done through that office. Page 79 is our conservation improvement program. Here you can see a 27% increase, and mainly what that increase is, and I alluded to that earlier, is the gas department now is required to spend 0.5% of their revenue in conservation programs. So those dollars actually were being used in the electric department because of, the furnace. The blower actually uses electricity, and you get more efficient ones, so it qualified under those programs. Well, you can't use them in both. And so if we're using them in the gas department, we're going to have to increase other programs under the electric side. So that's why you're seeing the increase in that department. Page 80 is the storeroom, or the MDC. It's a 3% increase in that department, and that's mainly due again to salaries. It's mostly salaries that are in this department. We have some small tools, maybe some safety equipment within here, but it's basically from the 2% increase in salaries. Page, let's see, 83, that's our drafting department. That went up 8.9%. The largest portion of that is under the travel conferences in schools. If you look further down on the page, this year it was $2,000. Next year it's $8,000. Our GIS employee is going to be taking some additional training in Oracle databases, which a lot of our software now has an Oracle database structure, and we don't really have anybody in-house that really is very fluent with that. And so he is going to be taking some training to kind of get knowledge on that software. So I guess that's it for the expenses. I can go over the capital on page 85. The first section is the administration, and that's going to cover both the PUC down here, and then it's also going to cover the city clerk's treasurer's office up here. The first one is we would like to do phase 2 of our HVAC. We put in a new HVAC system in the building last year. Phase 2 is actually some upgrades to the controls. So it's a steam system, so we have some difficulty on the shoulder months when the temperature outside can fluctuate, from a low in the morning to, you start out at, 40 in the morning and you're up to 60 in the afternoon. So this would help help reset the temperature so that it's based on the outside temperature, and it's also we would be adding some VFDs to maintain the differential pressure in that system. Unit 52, we would like to replace that. It's a very old vehicle. It's actually kind of been swapped around in departments. It's being used for the meter department right now, and we'd like to it's time to replace that. Machinery and equipment, the clerk's office or finance office up here would like to replace our mail machine. We have a mail machine that sends out basically all of our mail for both city and PUC. We have how many utility bills going through there, 3 times a month, every month for the year. So I'm not exactly sure how old that machine is, but we're thinking that it's about time. And then we also have $20,000 in here. This is put in through the GIS engineering department. The $20,000 is to develop a web app that will enhance and allow other individuals to edit and then also insert information into the GIS. So what happens now is a lot of these guys will write it on a piece of paper on a map. They'll hand it in to our drafter, and then he has to sit and manually put this in. This would be a web app that these guys could just automatically put it on, and it would automatically download into our mapping system. It would save time, save paper, just be much more efficient. The second part of this page is the material distribution center. We would like to spend $15,000 to pave some additional aisles. We want to get the inventory off of the gravel. It's sitting on gravel right now, and get it onto pavement. And then it also allows us to actually access that material with our forklift. There's some areas out there that we have difficulty getting to just because if it's in very wet conditions or things like that, the forklift just kind of sinks in that. And so this would just allow for better storage and maintaining that area. And then we're having some trouble with some draining back in the back of the lot. When the water comes through, rushes through, there's a big sink basin, but what's happening is it's, along with the water, all the gravel's going with it too, and it's plugging up the area. And so we'd like to kind of do some leveling and some changing out back there to stop having to keep replacing gravel every year, and obviously it's not good, it plugs the system up. So we would have a project for that. And the last item is, we have a automatic gate opener. Basically, the MDC is secure. I mean, we've got fencing all the way around the lot. There's valuable equipment, there's valuable materials out there, and so we have a gate opener, and it's old. We've been doing maintenance on it, trying to fix it. It's getting harder to fix and harder to get parts, so we're looking at wanting to upgrade that, and so that each one of the duty trucks will have an opener in their truck to get in and out. So that's basically the admin in 7 minutes, so if you have any questions.
Just clarification, and I ask this, I think, every year, because I can never remember, but back on 74, community development, is that the NUEDC, do you know? Is that the?
Yeah, the community development is what we give to the economic development.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I guess, if there aren't any changes, you know, obviously, the budget will, if there are any changes that you wanna see, we'll implement them into the budget. It'll come back to you in December for approval. So, so far I haven't heard that anybody has any, issues with it.
What was the net again? Was it 1.7?
Of increase?
Yeah. Like you said right at the very
Net
beginning.
income was 1.9,
Yep,
but, oh, the,
did I say that?
I thought you did, but I wasn't,
well, 0.7% increase in operating costs.
yeah, there we go. That was
Is that
what
what
it
you're
was.
looking for? That's on
So,
second page of the,
The only thing is that,
Oh, yes, there it is, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Swan had brought it up, it's just that whether there is any impact of Target when you look across the grand scheme of all the departments, whether it's a couple $100,000 or whether it's $5, just to take a look to see.
Okay, yeah, I can, you know, obviously we'd hope that somebody else will come in and, you know, take up whatever revenue we would lose from that, but, you know, we can have Larry look at that.
Yeah, I would anticipate that just given the weather fluctuations of one year to another, that you may not even
Yeah.
see them as any impact whatsoever. You see, you have a hot summer and a really cold winter, and you're never even gonna see the impact of them.
And what you want to remember as well as, you know, they may have, just pulling a number out, let's say they have $200,000 worth of utility costs in a year. With Target not here, we're not purchasing
Right,
that energy
right.
and we're not purchasing that
Right.
natural gas to
Yeah, so the
supply
net
them
might
too.
be
So
minimal.
really, the only difference in that is gonna be what your margin is
Right.
off of that, so.
So that's the question.
And they'll likely, when we did go up to Target and talk with them, you know, they're not gonna just turn the heat off in a building and,
Right.
you know, it's gonna have some minimal usage, just to get rid of the hot temperatures and the cold temperatures, so they'll have some utilities anyway. It won't go down to zero. So,
I thought the budget was really well done. So, very thorough, once again.
Thank you.
yep, and I think generally speaking, we owe a lot to that to Chris and her financial team. Or to Chris.
yes, that would be.
They're not a really big team,
The team
but.
that's sitting right around her on the table there.
With the assistance of the department heads, of course.
Absolutely, they're incremental, yeah.
Yeah.
in doing
All right,
that.
thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
Good job.
It's, thank you.
All right, just in time.
Yeah, make it quick.
So the rumor mill, whoops, are we?
Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
Meeting is adjourned.
Can't start the other one till 5, I'm
Cameras.
sure.